Welcome to B Flow Sessions, the podcast where we help you find the flow in life and on the river. I'm Brad Burton. Join me as I talk to paddlers, athletes, and adventurers who are all seeking the flow. B Flow Sessions is supported by the brands that keep us moving downstream. Dagger Kayaks, wherever there's water. Sawyer Paddles, crafted in Oregon and whitewater proven. And Stohlquist PFDs, conquering wild waters since 1977. Support the companies that support the flow. Welcome to the next episode of B Flow Sessions. I am really stoked, honored, all the positive adjectives that you could possibly come up with to be joined by somebody who is just an icon in our sport. Ladies and gentlemen, the one and only Eric Jackson. Thanks for being here, EJ.
Good to have me here, Brad. Good, it's really cool. Sorry it's taken so long to get together, but I'm glad we're here. Just had a good big dinner at Emily and Nick's house, and ready to rock and roll.
Awesome. So, I mean, I don't think he needs much of an introduction, but just in case people out there don't know, Eric Jackson is probably the most decorated freestyle kayaker of all time. He's been on one of the U.S. teams, either slalom or freestyle, since 1989. Multiple world champion. He was the highest American finisher at the 92 Summer Olympics, has worked for Wave Sport Kayaks and then founded two kayak companies that we're going to hear more about. I'm not going to go into a whole lot of his bio because so many people out there already know, and don't want to hear from me. You want to hear from EJ. But before we do, I do have to tell a story. So back in the early 2000s, you used to have to qualify for professional freestyle competitions. And you did it by finishing in the top three over a calendar year, or maybe it was top five in three competitions. I think that's what it was.
And the
So
expert.
I had in the expert class, yeah. So there was like beginner, intermediate, expert, and in the expert division, you had to finish top five in three events over the course of a calendar year. And I on the Coe Rodeo in May, I had finally gotten my third top five, and the next weekend was the Potomac. And I go to the Potomac, and it's my first competition as a pro, and I am behind EJ in the heat sheets. So I've got to follow the best kayaker in the world in my first ever pro competition. And for people who don't know, like when freestyle kayaking, they gauge the tricks based on how vertical they are. And there could be some subjectiveness there. Like, is it really vertical or is it not? Oh, it's on that line. Is it 45 or is it vertical? But when EJ goes, every one of his tricks are completely vertical. So when I go, all mine that are like maybe right there, they look flat. But to make matters worse, after EJ goes, and of course he does this amazing ride, and he knows I'm nervous. He knows this is my first time, and EJ doesn't remember this story, I'm sure. He paddles next to me, winks at me, and says, "Welcome to professional kayaking."
That's cool. Well, the slogan back then is nothing but vertical. Nothing but vertical. That's all you had to say. Nothing but vertical. That was the rule.
So I
That's
had to
cool. I
tell that
remember that
story.
story. That's cool. Potomac was super fun. Was that at S-Turn or was that at where was that at? Do you remember
I
where
think it
that
was
was?
S-turn. I don't
S-Turn.
remember. There was a couple years there where we had high water. We had to do the race through the fish ladder.
Mm.
Um, so I'm not
Potomac
really.
Festival was so fun. So
Yeah, the
fun.
whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, that's really cool. All right, so we'll get into the podcast. I apologize for those listening, but I had to tell that story. It is something that I've always remembered that, and to me, it really encapsulates EJ's personality. You know, he's a supportive, but he's also going to kind of give you a hard time at the same time. So EJ, how did you find your flow in kayaking? How'd you get your start?
I was really lucky that my dad was all about doing adventure stuff. He was in the 82nd Airborne. He was an engineer at Piper Aircraft, and then a bunch of the test pilots invited him to come whitewater canoeing, and we lived in Lock Haven, Pennsylvania. I was 6 at the time, and he bought a Grumman canoe and invited me. And I was afraid at the time. We'd go to the fair, and I was afraid of the roller coasters. So I was like I don't know. My question to my dad was, so how fast do they go? He goes, I don't know, maybe 5-10 miles an hour. And I was like, what? That's nothing. Yeah, I'll go. And sure enough, I wasn't afraid of whitewater canoeing. It was cool. It was like, man, those stupid like rides at the fair, those were scary. But this 5 mile, 10 mile an hour. That's nothing. Anyway, so that's how I started. And it was my first ever whitewater canoe trip was an overnighter on the Grand Canyon of Pennsylvania, Pine Creek. And everybody was saying how, wow, he's doing so good. He's not afraid or whatever. And this dude, Wilford Kling, had a homemade kayak, was paddling with us. Everybody else had canoes, and he was one of the test pilots. And I talked him out of he had his homemade kayak. And I talked him out of his boat on a couple of the easier rapids. I'm only 6 years old, and I'm like, oh, and I'm like, man, this is awesome. And it was just one of those things where that trip like was amazing. Dad, when are we going to go again? And we only went like a few times a year, and we did that for a while. But I was a whitewater canoer, and if anybody asks, like kayaker, really. And
Right.
then, but then we moved to Florida from age 10 to 15. I lived in Florida. We didn't have
Mm.
whitewater down there. That's when I got into bass fishing. Whoa. Anyway,
Okay.
so that's where the bass fishing came from. My next door neighbor was a pro bass fisherman. Anyway, different story. We're talking about whitewater here, but
It's all about
uh,
flow. So.
yeah. But then yeah, I was in the flow on the bass fishing too. But we would go to the coast. We literally go to Cocoa Beach in a Grumman canoe and paddle out through the waves and surf the waves in. It was like the most dangerous thing of all time. Like, I'm surprised we didn't kill anybody because we'd turn sideways and the thing would be tumbling in this aluminum canoe and wiping
Oh
people
my
out.
gosh.
But anyway, we were told we weren't allowed to do that anymore. That was Florida. But then my dad, the engineering department was getting canceled at Piper Aircraft. They were having issues, whatever. My dad was like, we're going to go move to New Hampshire where we can go skiing and kayaking or canoeing is what he said. And so we moved at age 15. And within the first week, my dad and his buddy went whitewater canoeing without me. I still don't understand that story, like how I wasn't there. And they wrapped the canoe around the rock because I wasn't in it, obviously. And and the canoe's gone. So that week we went to Wilderness Outfitters in Manchester, New Hampshire. I'm not sorry, not in Amherst, New Hampshire. We go in, and there's these red and white kayaks on the surface and hanging up. And I was like, Dad, we're getting those.
Mm.
And we bought two Lettman Mark IVs, Old Town Lettman Mark IVs. They're 72 Olympic slalom racing boats, but Old Town bought the mold. This is in 79. 7 years later, and we bought those kayaks, and that's when we started. And what's funny, the very first time it was 3 feet. This is in the winter time. Well, it's March. It's 3 feet of snow on the ground. We had a big snow year that year, and we show up to the Salhegan River to the put-in, and we've got my dad's Oldsmobile Cutlass S with two brand new kayaks on the top, and we had our orange like strap-on life jackets, down coats on. We're ready to rock and roll in our kayaks, and we pull in, and these other kayakers come, and we're like, oh, and they were like, are you going kayaking today? We're like, yeah, can we join with you guys? And they're like, do you have your rating cards? And we're like, what's your rating card? And like, well, we're the Appalachian Mountain Club, and if you don't have a rating card, you can't join us. And we're like, we're all deflated, and we're literally tying our kayaks back on. And then all of a sudden, these other dudes come in and start doing donuts in the parking lot. And we're just like, and they've got kayaks on the roof, and they get out, and the Appalachian Mountain Club is already gone down the river. And we were like getting ready to leave, and they pull out, and they're like, are you guys kayaking today? Like, oh, we don't have a rating card, so we want to go kayaking. They're like, oh, the Appalachian Mountain Club is here? Don't worry about it. We're the Merrimack Valley Paddlers. You can come with us. And I was like, really? Like, yeah. So we went on the Salhegan River, and it was just like, I don't know, it was our first time in whitewater since 5 years earlier when we lived in Pennsylvania, and it was super fun. We didn't tip over or anything like that, but it immediately we were just like, we knew we were whitewater kayakers and canoers. We just hadn't done it in 5 years. Now we're like in, and every single weekend from then on. Anyway, that's where the flow started. Literally,
Yeah.
there's no hump to get over. It was like we're on the water, and one of the first things that happened was we're in an eddy, like we're in the put-in eddy, and this guy paddles up to a little drop and puts his bow. These are, 13-foot boats. Puts his bow in, and the water hits his bow and goes all the way up over his spray skirt. And he's like, not doing an ender, not doing pop, just water is like rushing and hitting his chest. Not his chest, this is his belly. And I'm like,
Yeah.
what? And I go and do that, and I'm like, holy shit, this is unbelievable. Anyway, that's when I got hooked on kayaking, and it was from that moment forward, it was like no question. This is like I'm a kayaker, and this is awesome. Anyway,
Was your next step then to head to the DC area? Is that how you kind of got started in slalom?
I mean, I started slalom in '84, or 5 years later. So what really happened was, so that's the spring. Um, and we came in, all of a sudden we got a pool session. Out of 40 members in our club, one guy knew how to roll, Bob O'Neill. So there's a club, Merrimack Valley Paddlers, 40 members. Bob O'Neill is the only one that knows how to roll. Literally, the other club members, not all of them, most of them are like, oh yeah, Eskimo rolling, that's like a circus trick. People don't actually do it in a river. Like people
Mm.
don't really do that. It's like a circus trick. You do it in a pool. Bob O'Neill's like, nah, this is like the real deal, man. You tip over in the river, you roll up. And my dad kind of picked up on that, and we organized a pool. Bob taught me to roll. I'm on the swim team. I'm a good swimmer. I can hold my breath, whatever. I rolled in like first couple of minutes, and then I taught my dad to roll. Then we taught everybody else to roll. And then that spring, 7 people dislocated their shoulders in the first 30 days because the only thing we wanted to do is surf the biggest holes. Um, and we literally, like, if you didn't go, like, we would terrorize anybody that didn't go, like, go in the hole, I'm going in the hole. And we just find the biggest pour over holes and go in. Anyway, it obviously we didn't know what we were doing exactly, but Bob O'Neill asked if I could go to the Kennebec, and the Kennebec River is class 5, and it's not really, but they call Magic Falls class 5. It's class 4, but whatever. Um, and my dad became president of the club instantly because he organized the pool, whatever, and he had a house that he would have meetings in. So we get to the club meeting, and Bob O'Neill's like, I'm going to take EJ to the Kennebec River. And all the other club members like, no, you're going to kill him. He's only 15 years old, and blah, blah, blah. And eventually they literally having a meeting, and my dad is, okay, he can go. And then Bob's like, oh. And I go to the Kennebec, and then Tom Rogers, Action Photography, sees me, and he says, I'll give you a job on the Kennebec this summer. You come back, I'll give you a summer job as a whitewater photographer. You paddle the river every day, you take pictures for me, and I do the photos for Maine Whitewater, Eastern River, Kennebec Dories, blah, 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 a bunch of different companies. You take the photos, develop them or whatever, we sell them to people, and that was my deal. So I went to the Kennebec and I paddled every single day, and all of a sudden I'm now like a really good kayaker, and I'm doing all the
Right.
hardest stuff immediately. So that was kind of I knew I was the best kayaker there, like, but I was the big fish in a little pond. Like, I didn't know
Right.
anybody anywhere else. All I knew was like nobody else is surfing this hole and doing enders here and blah blah blah. Anyway, that's where I really got my confidence, and was just like, I love kayaking, and seems like I can do a lot of cool things in my kayaks that other people can't do.
Hmm. And all these years later, you still do things in a kayak that a lot of people can't do. What about flow guides? Who were your first mentors? I mean, you mentioned some of the people there, but maybe, let's move on to getting started in slalom. You've been a mentor to so many people, but, once you got real serious and competing, who were your
Yeah.
mentors and flow guides?
Well, obviously, I mentioned Bob O'Neill was the first guy because he's the guy that could roll, taught me to roll. So he's number one. He's the first guy to get me in and go. So without him, I don't know what would have happened. That's number one. '84, I moved to DC. I did a race and whatever, and I wanted to be on. Real quick backstory. I'll try to make it as quick as I can. This dude,
Take your time.
Hank Thurburn, which I didn't know who he was. I'm taking photos at the Three Sisters back when it was called the Three Sisters. By the way, I named it the Big Mama when it flooded. But anyway, whatever. I'm taking pictures at the Three Sisters, and this guy has a USA patch on his paddle jacket, this short, and he's all red, white, and blue, and he's in his
Mm.
funky little slalom boat, and he's zipping around on the top wave at the Three Sisters, just surfing. And clearly he was in an ender position forever. And I'm like, ender, ender. Like, why is he not endering? And then he paddles away. And I'm like, oh, he had it for like 5 minutes. He could have entered. He didn't enter once. I was so confused. But anyway, I was also confused about the USA. And I eventually caught up to him down at the bottom of the river. And I'm like, what's with the USA? He goes, I'm on the US kayak team. And I'm like, what? There's a US
Yeah, there
kayak
is.
team?
Yeah.
Yeah, like, what do you mean there's a U.S. kayak team? I was literally, when I watched Mark Spitz win 7 gold medals in the '72 Olympics, and I started swimming a week later. I'm going to be in the Olympics. I'm going to do that. Like, that's what I'm going to do. And I was on the swim team at that point, At this point, now I'm starting at University of Maine, but now there's a U.S. kayak team. Like, screw swimming, this is way more fun. And I literally found out about it and whatever. And ultimately, I called Bill Endicott, who's
Mm.
the U.S. team coach. And I was like, hey, Bill, this is Eric Jackson from Maine. Now, meanwhile, I did a race. I managed to convince, by the way, I was fully sponsored before I did a race. I worked for Maine for action photography, but this dude, Wayne Hockmeyer, that everybody hates, anybody you mention the name, most people are like, oh, I hate that guy because he was so mean. But he was really nice to me. Um, he he would invite me to his lodge, and he'd put out a whole bucket of quarters on his Tron game because nobody would play with him, but I would play with him because we were like buddies. So we'd feed the Tron game, and we'd play these video games in his lodge. And I told him that I saw this guy. I'm going to be a world champion kayaker. I'm going to be on the U.S. kayak team. And he's like, oh, well, you need a kayak. I'll get you a kayak. I'm like, oh yeah. He goes, is there any races, whatever? And a couple of days later, there's a race in Errol, New Hampshire on the whatever, the Saco River, whatever. Anyway, he literally, I got a yellow and green top, a yellow and green kayak. These are Northern Outdoors colors. And we put the boat on top of a yellow and green Northern Outdoors van, and he drives me to the race. And I pull in. I've never been seen in the history of slalom race. No slalom racer's ever seen me. And most of the people from New England, they went to like Amherst College or Dartmouth back in the day. Back there. Yeah. And I get out of the van, and Wayne takes my boat off the top. He carries it to the put-in. The whole deal. Like, it's just like he's my caddy. I've never even been in a slalom race. And it's just like, I don't think much about it, but everybody's like, this dude is like fully sponsored. Like, we don't have sponsors. Have you ever been in? I've never slalom raced before. It's my first race. And they're like, what? And I get in, I get second place. And so the dude that won, Chris Smith, he was on the U.S. team. He calls Bill Endicott. There's this dude from Maine. He's like fully sponsored, and he just got second. And I beat like a bunch of apparently bigger names. I don't even remember who because I didn't know anybody then. Anyway, that's how it started. I called Bill, and I went there. Bill saw me paddle, and he said, if you come to DC, move here, I'll coach you. And in 5 years, if you train hard and nothing bad happens, I bet you can make the U.S. team. Of course, I was thinking, yeah, I'm going to make the U.S. team first year. And I get there. So when it comes to who are my mentors, I get there. Obviously, Bill Endicott was one. But the people training there, John Lugbill, Davey Hearn, Kathy Hearn, Fritz and Lecky Haller, and then a bunch of others. But the people that were so Fritz Haller was like one right out of the gate. And his theme song was The Who, damn it, what's the name of the song? Anyway, the one where call it a bargain.
Okay.
I stand naked, cold, and sad. I call that a bargain, the best I ever had.
Oh,
and
yeah. Okay.
It's the middle of the winter, and it's like, wow, I've got no money, got nothing, but we're just like, wow, we're just out there crushing it. That was his theme song. Anyway, he kind of took me under his wing. So did his brother Lucky, and so did Kathy Hearn, Davey Hearn, a little bit also. John Lugbill was just kind of like a mentor in that, like, you just watch the guy to sit there and go, whoa. And
Yeah.
he didn't like pay a lot of attention to me, but I got to train with him. Those guys really, and girls really, were the ones that I was just blown away that I got to paddle with. But they were like super hardcore, top of the sport, and really welcomed me in, and they didn't like shun me. I was like the comic relief, dude on the side that didn't really fit into the equation. But those guys really, really were cool.
And then you make the 1992 Olympic team. You end up being the highest finisher of all the American paddlers. I mean, people like Scott Shipley's on the team. And then the next year is the 93 Freestyle Worlds at Hellhole on the Ocoee. I believe, I didn't really start until 97 and getting into really the sport till 99. For me, that felt like an eternity prior to me 93, but really it was only a few years, right? But I really believe that 93 Worlds was kind of like pivotal moment in freestyle kayaking, or maybe when it really became freestyle. I mean, the people that were there, Shane Benedict, who was on the podcast right before you, and Corin, who was one of my first guests, and Scott Shipley, Mark Lyle, and you were there as well. Is that the moment that you kind of, yeah, Bob McDonough? I mean,
Bob
yeah, is that?
McDonough, Yeah, Donald Caldor. There's a lot of big names. Jan Kellner. Anyway, there's a bunch of them. I'll
Yeah.
give you a quick, interesting story. '84 was my first time I made the U.S. B team. My first year in slalom, not the A team, but the B team. But I got to go to Europe, and I'm in Augsburg, and this dude comes up to me in Augsburg, Germany. German guy, obviously. Jan Kellner. Kellner comes up to me and he goes, "Are you Eric Jackson?" I'm like, "Yeah." You do rodeo kayaking. Now, how a dude from Germany knows I'm a rodeo kayaker? He does. Now, the reason, because, well, I basically won any rodeo that I competed in, '84, '86, whatever. Like, that was people, I was a rodeo paddler doing slalom, basically.
Okay.
But I didn't know I had an international following or whatever. He goes, "Show me rodeo." And I'm like, "Okay, we need a boat." And then he gets a Prion something something. I don't remember what it was at the time. Whatever was out, and we go to the washing machine, and of course, there's not a lot you can do there. The boat's like super long, and it's not that deep. But I just go into my hands and do some, rolls and get a couple enders and whatever. And he's like, "Wow." Well, in '91, the unofficial worlds, the first worlds, he won that
Okay.
event. That's where I saw him next. Now, I didn't know about the '91 Worlds. I didn't compete in the '91 Worlds because the people in America that went to the '91 Worlds didn't want me to know about it, didn't tell me about it. They went without me. Anyway, that's all I'm saying about that. but but I found out about the '93 Worlds, and the '93 Worlds, no question, that's the first Worlds where you had to make a team. You couldn't go
Hmm.
to the Worlds if you didn't qualify for your national team. It wasn't like, a few people got invited and it was called a World Championships. It was literally like everybody knows about it. If you're on the team, you can compete. And it also was it really went from a subjective sport where it's literally like 1 to 100 or 1 to 10. And I
Right.
competed in quite a few of those, and they're super depressing because you can watch somebody just flip over, fall on their head, and if the judge likes them, they're like, "Oh, 9," and then somebody does a perfect pirouette and lands at whatever, like 4. Anyway, that wasn't a sport I would ever dedicate my life to because it's not um, objective. You can't, it's just a whatever.
Right.
But
Sure.
'93 wasn't that. '93 had objective scoring, like you got points for every move you did, that type of thing.
Hmm.
And you had teams, and people came from all over the world, and it was very hotly contested. The biggest companies in the world sent all I mean, Bill Masters is on the shore for Perception, and Joe Pulliam's on the shore for Dagger, and um, Prion guys are there, and Piranha, and the whole deal. Like everybody's there, and they all want to win this event.
Right.
Want to hear a really funny story about it or not?
Of course. Yeah. Heck yeah.
Okay, cool. The, so the boat we're competing in. So before I got there, Corin calls me. Corin lived in my house. His first place that not he lived in maybe in the southeast for a little bit, or maybe not. Maybe the first place was my house. I don't know. I think it was Davy Hearn's house and then mine. He lived in my house for like a month, whatever. So we got to be good buddies. We got to run Great Falls every day and whatever. And super cool. But he calls and he's like, "People are getting like 10 ends in a minute now. Like it's like this isn't like the old rodeo, man. You're gonna have to like come here and train and blah blah blah." And my line at the time is, "It's not the boat, it's the motor. Like forget
Right.
boat design. Put me in a boat, man." I'm like, "It's not the boat, it's the motor." That literally was my mantra. And I show up in my Dagger Crossfire um, for the first time, and I go there and I'm like, "Holy shit! I can't compete against the Hurricane. I can't compete against um, the Acrobat and whatever."
Hmm.
And Mark Lyle calls me and he's like, "Hey, I'm working on a boat, and you have any input?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it needs to be short and low volume and blah blah blah." I didn't have a lot of input, just whatever. And he makes 4 Kevlar fiberglass kayaks called the Dagger
Hmm.
Transition. 4 of them. Scott Shipley gets one, Chris Spielers gets one, Mark Lyle gets one, and I get one. Okay,
Yep.
so we're competing in it, and the deal is, he delivers the boat, so I get this boat. I'm like, "Oh my god, I'm set free now. I can compete." And Mark goes, "Just so you know, this boat is property of Dagger. The second the competition, let nobody else paddle it. The second this competition over, all of them have to go back to Dagger. They're going to be destroyed because these are liability risks. These are dangerous kayaks. These should not be ever out. General kayaker runs that are going to die in it, whatever. Dagger doesn't want these out because they're a liability risk. Like these are dangerous boats, not for river running. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay. Well, now it's the finals, and it's two people left. It's me against Dan Gavir. And it's like the crowd is going nuts. And literally, I'm about to do my ride, and I'm either going to win or not win. Now, the reality is I won the worlds already because of the freestyle through the rapid, whatever. Even if Dan beat me, I still would have been world champion, but it doesn't matter. All I know is Joe Pulliam is owner of Dagger, and he's sitting right there, and he's like, wow. They're just going nuts. He was like a kid. And I'm like, Joe, if I win, this boat's mine. And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, if I win, this boat's mine. Yeah, go. And I'm like, okay. And I go in and I win the head-to-head against Dan Gavir. And the second I did that, I watched, there's, Mark Lyle and Chris Bilius and Shipley all walking up the hill, and I watched them all be putting these boats back in the Dagger van, whatever. And I walk up the hill, and I'm like, I know what I have to do right now. I just have to go straight to my car, tie this bad boy on. And sure enough, I just won, but I'm like, I give my wife a kiss, and I walk up, and they're like, come like this, like, you got to bring the van. I'm like, nope, this boat's mine. And they're like, no, you got to. I'm like, and I just like, well, I started walking. And like literally, I've got Mark Lyle, who's really pissed. And sorry, Mark, for this.
And he's really big.
Yeah, he's big and he's pissed. And I've wrestled Mark many times, and he's
I've
never
seen
had to
it.
put a knee. I have. He's never had to put a knee down once. His knees never touched the ground, but he's pinned me every time. That's how good of Mark Lyle is at wrestling. But anyway, I
Yeah.
still wrestle him. So I go and I tie it on the car, and literally they're like, ah. And I'm like, you go talk to Joe Pulliam. He said, if I win, it's mine. And sure enough, I took it. And what people don't know is that Dagger transition sat there for a couple years. And then Mark busted it out, that prototype, shaved a little bit off the bow, changed a little shapes, and that became the Dagger RPM. That's where the RPM came from.
Yep.
And just to add to it, in 96, when the RPM came out, guess what the Dagger catalog said? Warning, park and play machine, not for river
Yeah.
running, expert only. That's how much times have changed. Now, you take some old lady that's never paddled before. Oh, you should try the RPM.
RPM.
Super safe.
And when Dagger was still in Harriman, that boat that you're talking about hung in the front lobby for the longest time with a sign that said "Paddled by Eric Jackson, World Champion,
Well,
1993."
I was out of money. I still feel bad about it. Like I was desperate for cash, and I'm like, I've had that boat, and I'm like, maybe Dagger would buy it back, and they bought it back for $2,000 from me, and it's because I needed the
Good
cash,
deal.
and
Good
and I
deal
was
for you.
like, I can always, one day when I get money, I'll buy it back from them because they'll just keep it. But then when Dagger moved, it went to Easley. No, when
Hmm.
Dagger moved from Harriman, either from Easley or Harriman, one or the other, somebody was there and like, EJ, you got to come get the boat. They're going to cut it up. And sure enough, it went through a bandsaw. They
Oh,
sawed it up and went in the garbage. True story.
oh, that's awful.
Dane
That's
has
awful.
all of every boat Dane won a world championships he has here. I only have
That's
my
cool.
Easy and my 2007 All-Star, but I don't have my Dagger Transition or my original 2004 All-Star that I won in. But
Okay. Hmm. So this next segment is perfect flow. Tell me about some times when everything was just perfect on the river. I mean, obviously you've probably had a lot of these days, but one that just sticks out. It's like, man, this was a great day.
uh, probably first one, 2003 March. Um, Emily comes to me and says she's 13 or 12. She's 12. Yeah, I don't know, 12, almost 13. She comes to me and goes, Dad, can you teach me how to roll? And I was like, yeah. And then Dane's in the room and he goes, wait, what? You want to learn to roll? He's like, well, I want to learn to roll too. And I was like, okay, let's go. And we just literally they already know how to paddle, and they paddled a lot. Neither one wanted to learn how to roll. And we just drive down, I just drive straight to Rock Island. It's like March, it's high water, it's cold water. And we get in the water, and Emily learns to roll in like 2 minutes, and then Dane learns to roll in the 2 minutes. And then we're at the eddy right next to the main hole. And immediately, let's go run Brave Wave Rapid. And so I took them down this class, 3+ rapid right away. They crushed it. And from that day forward, they paddled with me every single day.
That's awesome.
So that was cool.
That sounds like a pretty perfect day. What about flood? A time when the flow wasn't going well, maybe on the river or life, business, things like that. Whatever you would want to share here with that.
Well, generally speaking, we really enjoy floods. Like higher water, the better. But
Sure.
so so if you, I don't usually use the term flood as a negative thing, but in the spirit of what you're asking, obviously, I built my life around kayaking, and I feel very fortunate that I was able to take, my skills of designing kayaks and selling kayaks and paddling kayaks and put it all together to create a kayak company of my own, Jackson Kayak, and I founded that. And within 3 years, we became the number one whitewater kayak company, and to this day, it's the longest running number one kayak company in the world. But I lost control of that business, and meaning where I didn't own majority ownership, and anyway, things turned south for me after that, and just trying to hold on to that business and run it the way I wanted to run it in the spirit of who I am and what it
Hmm.
came from. That was definitely the way you would call it, a flood experience. And then ultimately it became like to the point where, as you know, I don't even own anything in Jackson Kayak and I'm starting over. So that would probably be the biggest quote unquote flood experience, and uh, but yeah,
That must
but
be
other than
tough.
that,
I mean, to
yeah.
see your name on the boats and, but I know you have another love now and another, product that you're beginning with Apex Watercraft, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You can't get me out of the sport. Uh, survival is something you've got to do, but ultimately, I made a life out of kayaking, back in, let's say, I committed full time in '84 to whitewater kayaking, and it's what I really enjoy doing. Um, I know, I'm like last man standing. I've been doing it the longest, and I've been doing it at a high level at every aspect. Athlete, business, designing, selling, whatever, running companies, and I enjoy doing that. So there's no way, and but I need to do it my way. I'm not, you know, I'm not gonna, have a boss that tells me how to run a kayak company. So
Right.
I'm the boss at Apex Watercraft. We're small, we're new, we're very niche. We make some amazing boats. We happen to be the largest seller of carbon fiber whitewater kayaks in the world, so we're number one at that, which doesn't make us very big, but it's a starting point. And at the end of the day, we've only, we're about a tenth the size that we will be. Most people don't even know they want a carbon fiber kayak. You know why? It's because
Because I never
everybody
paddled
had
one.
composite boats. They just don't know about it yet.
Yeah.
Literally, people have been untrained. They've been trained about plastic. In the '84 Koei rodeo, plastic was still about 50% of the market at that point. It really kicked in, about 1980, where it really started kicking in, with the Mirage, and then by the time '83, the Dancer or whatever. Literally, my winning move was to have a big flat rock in my life jacket and go into double trouble back when it was a hole on the Koei. And I'd take the rock out, and while side surfing the hole, just like slam this rock on the front of my boat and go, plastic, plastic. And people were like, whoa. They thought it was the coolest thing. I won. I won $2,000 for that. But anyway,
Wow.
um, so plastic was a huge addition to whitewater kayaks. But the loss of composites is, and back then it was fiberglass, Kevlar, polyester, even vinyl ester resin. Now it's high impact epoxy, foam core, carbon. Advanced materials are much better. People don't know that they want a carbon boat. The second, all you do is pick up one of my boats. You pick up a 9 foot, 80-gallon ringer, and it's 23 pounds. And you're like, what the hell? And then you get it on the water. Anybody who says I don't want that boat hasn't picked it up and hasn't paddled it. You're on the boat and on the water paddling, and you're like, "Oh, I wish this boat was twice as heavy." Like it never happens once. Now
Right.
the only time you're like, "Man, I wish I had plastic," is when you're going bam, bam, and you're on a super manky run. You're like, "Man, I wish I had a plastic boat." I feel the same way. There will always be a place for plastic, no question. But 100% of every paddler wants a carbon fiber boat and would rather paddle one. And if they say otherwise, they're completely oblivious. And the reality is that people are completely oblivious. Like the people that are watching this right now are like, well, that doesn't make any sense. Why would I spend $3,000 for it? It's like, forget how much it costs. It's like, you want to drive like a Lamborghini, or you want to drive, a Chevy Chevette. And like, I'm just
Right.
saying, like, the Lamborghini's more fun. It's probably going to break down. It's going to cost you more, whatever. But if you can paddle it, you can drive it, you're going to like it. Anyway, so that's the interesting thing. So I've got an education. I've got to educate the entire whitewater world that there's a place, and in order to do it, you have to have touch points. So here's the proof in the pudding. I teach clinics here at Rock Island. Out of every 10 students that come to my clinic without any boat, no, they don't have an Apex or nothing, I sell 7 Apex boats for every 10 customers because they see
Wow.
it, they touch it, they pick it up, they get to paddle it, and then they're like, I want one, and they're $3,250. That's cool.
Right. That's really cool. And that's the next topic was current. What do you do to find flow today? But that's kind of the two things that you're doing now. I mean, I know you're still competing, you're still a husband, you're still a father, a grandfather, but as far as the sport goes and the industry goes, you're teaching kayaking out of Rock Island and Apex Watercraft, and it's really cool. Tell me about what that's been like going back to instruction and offering high-end classes.
So, instruction is something I've done, ongoing. I wrote my first book in '98. Made my first VHS tapes in 2000, or yeah, 2000. But in '93, and the way instruction happened in '92, I was at the Olympics. So Scott Shipley's there, Rich Weiss, and we were on the team. Bill Endicott's the coach, and we're at a training camp literally for the Olympics, like a couple weeks before or whatever. And Scott Shipley says to Bill, we're doing video review in this room. I've got this way of doing this upstream where you kind of go deep, carry your speed better, and you come out with more speed, even though it's a longer line. I think ultimately it's a faster way to do it. And Bill's just Mr. Pragmatic. Bill doesn't know how to do all these things. He just knows how to watch, time, whatever. He tries to find best practices from the best people. So he's like, let's do it on a stopwatch. And he stopwatches my upstream and Scott's, and mine's like a tenth faster, and mine's the tight line. He goes, no, the way we're doing it now is better. And that's end of story. And I'm like, yeah, cool. End of story for me. A year later, Scott Shipley wins the World Cup. Why? Because he perfected this upstream system, and I didn't win the World Cup. And because I'm stuck with old technology and old skills, and I'm like, what the fuck? I was so pissed. Oh, sorry, I shouldn't say that, but I
I
was
can
so
label it explicit. It's okay.
I was so bummed that I was that it immediately it opened my eyes that Bill Endicott, love him, and any coach, nobody can teach you how to be the best in the world. You want to be the best in the world, you have to do things that nobody else has ever thought of. You have to lead the charge. You can't just like, oh, this is how you do it, and then get really good at it. Doesn't mean that in 100-yard dash maybe you can do that, but not in slalom kayaking or freestyle, anything that the techniques are progressing and the equipment's progressing. You have to invent the new techniques, invent the new equipment, stay ahead of the curve. That's how you become number one. And I learned
Mhm.
that from Scott Shipley the hard way in '93. Well, that '93 is when I threw 100% of all technique out the door. The forward stroke, the forward sweep, the reverse strokes. There wasn't a such thing as the C stroke at the time, the cutting stroke, the closed face draws. There's a bunch of stuff that didn't even exist. But the ACA system, it was clear that like, oh my God, this is like I'm surprised you can get down the river with this stuff. Like literally not best practice. And the best people in the world at that time were the best slalom racers because they had
Right.
full-time coaches. They paddled twice a day, every day. They're high performance athletes. And the boats they were paddling were the same length as the boats everybody else was paddling. They were all
Right.
13-meter boat or 4-meter boats. Now they were higher performance with edges, so they had edge control and other people didn't. Slalom paddlers were clearly the best paddlers, but guess what they weren't doing? Teaching anybody else how to do it. They were retiring and pulling. The coaches weren't saying, "Hey, everybody, here's how you
Right.
become the best. Here's the technique." The best technique was coming, They would retire, it would go away, and they would just have a job. They weren't professionals, done. And that was the same. The coaches weren't doing the same. Bill Endicott did write a couple books back in the 80s that were very helpful. But bottom line is best practices weren't being laid out. And that's when I started developing them, writing them down, and I decided I'm going to be the best paddler in the world because I realized I'm going to do the Scott Shipley technique, but I'm going to do it with everything. And by the end of the 90s, I had that system down. I had a strategy. You know, as Winston Churchill said, the amateur focuses on tactics, the professional on logistics. So I was creating logistical plans for being the best and then learning the tactics that would work, all the individual nuances of strokes and whatever. And strokes and concepts is the first thing that came out of it. And I felt like I should be telling everybody about it. It wasn't even for money originally. It was just like, how come people like me need to know it? And I wrote it in a book and put it out there. And sure enough, I got paid, you know, Stackpole Books picked me up and published my book and whatever. And I got an advance of $5,000. And I'm just like, I got $5,000. It's like Wayne's World. I was so fired up.
Yeah.
Christine and I we were dancing around just doing that. We were so fired up. But, and then I started doing, and Ken Whiting did a book at that time also, and he just won the 97 Worlds, right? So,
yeah.
So Ken and Whiting and I were the only ones doing it. No, the difference was Ken kind of retired from paddling because he started Heliconia, and I was continuing my paddling career and developing techniques, making new whitewater freestyle moves, new equipment, and whatever. And then I just documented the path along the way. And then all of a sudden I had Dane and Emily as kids. And then I put them in and I started documenting their path along the way. So that's where my instruction really came from. And I've been doing it ever since. Now, literally just trying to survive. Apex doesn't pay my bills yet because it's not big enough to do that. And I'm going to take out bank loans and I've got employees and stuff like that. So I just don't pay myself at Apex. So how do I make money? Christine's like, Emily and Dane live down there. They don't live in the house anymore. We got 3 extra bedrooms in our ranch. We got a badass log house with really cool rooms. Basically a resort house. We have every game you could ever want. We have an 18-hole disc golf course, shuffleboard, bag toss, Miss Pac-Man, you know, whatever. We got it's super badass house in the middle of nowhere at Rock Island. So we started charging. She's like, why don't you do clinics at Rock Island? And I was like, I didn't even think of that. So the clinics are like $3,400 for 4 days. So it's a lot of money. But it requires a lot of money to, you know, if you're going to make a living as a kayak instructor and you have a house and cars and family or whatever, you got to make good money. Anyway, it ended up being really cool to do and really fun. And I've always maintained, like I teach at Wilderness Tours every year since '84. I missed COVID. And then this year I missed because I hurt myself at the Worlds. And it was like the week after Worlds, and I didn't paddle for a month. But basically, I've taught kayaking since '84 every year, so I'm always teaching. But this is ramping it up, and this is becoming more of a way to make a living. I also had adventure schools in D.C. We did 2,000 students this summer, so it was like massive kayak school in Washington D.C. Anyway, sorry, that's the current.
No,
hopefully that was.
No, that's exactly.
There's one more thing.
Go ahead. Tell me.
Thing. I'm just the tip that it's secret, but I've got a project that I'm doing that will do more for whitewater. I pull this project off, which I will. It will do more for whitewater than the sum total of all things that I've done for whitewater with whitewater so far. I will grow the whitewater market. I will put whitewater on a map in such a big way that's like unbelievable. Anyway, I'm not going to say a whole lot more.
I thought you were gonna break it to the world right here on B-Flow Sessions.
I'm not going to bring it to the world yet because, but I'm very excited about it. I've been working on it for 5 years. I'd say full time, and it's not public information yet. And it's when it hits, ultimately it's going to be super cool. And you'll know what it is when it hits. You'll be like, and at first you'll be like, oh, that's cool. I don't understand how it's going to be the biggest thing in whitewater. And then it takes another 4 years to get organized and whatever. And then all of a sudden it drops and you're just like, and that's it.
Okay.
Then it's game on.
I can't wait. I can't wait
Yeah.
to see what that is. Yeah. I want to go back to a little bit of a story time, just things that, I haven't. It was so great to see you and Christine and the family at Golly Fest, but other than a few trips to the Golly over the last 20 years, haven't seen you a lot. Somebody I used to, see a lot and compete against. Tell me about just how the freestyle tour evolved from your point of view, and like going from Dagger 93 Worlds to then Wave Sport, and you guys formulating this team. And the team Wave Sport kind of dominated the late 90s, early 2000s, and then into Jackson Kayak.
Yeah. So when I won the 93 Worlds, I'm young. I'm like, young, hungry, up and coming. I'm on the Olympic team. Now I'm a world champion. I'm like, of course, I'm going to be the poster child for Dagger. I'm going to be on the cover of the catalog. I'm going to be full page ads, the whole deal. And I called the guys at Dagger and I'm like, hey, am I going to be on the cover of the catalog? Are we doing full page ads? Like, what is it like to be world champion at Dagger? Like, we don't want to start an advertising war with perception. Like, well, what do you mean? Well, we're not going to do that because if we don't win the next time and then they'll promote it or whatever, so we're just going to basically pretend it didn't happen. And I was like, what? Well, that doesn't sit well with me. No, I stayed 95. I went to the Worlds. I'm the current world champion. And they, instead of sending me the new RPM prototype, I had the plastic Dagger transition sent.
Ooh,
And it's like super long, a shitty playboat
yeah.
and whatever. I ripped my ribs. I couldn't paddle for 4 months. I literally, in finals, the first 10 seconds, I ripped my ribs and blah, blah, blah. I left. I get home and uh, I'm like, okay, this isn't working for me. And in 93, when I was begging on the streets of DC, it's another story. You can hear it if you want. But everybody hated me. All the slalom racers wrote me, like didn't want to even see me. Like I'm like such a stain on the sport of slalom because we're all, silver spoon people or whatever. Anyway, the one person that came up to me in 93 team trials when everybody else was shunning me, including the Olympic Committee was deciding how to punish me, USA Canoe Kayak was going to decide how to punish me, all the athletes were avoiding me, but this guy Chan Zwanzig walks up to me and he goes, "Pass me, EJ, what you did is badass. Anything you need from me, I will support you. That is so cool. Don't listen to people." And I'm like, I don't even know who he is. And he's like the owner of Wave Sport back when they just had the Excel, whatever. And
Right.
2 years later, after that experience at Worlds, where I'm the world champion, and they didn't bother to send me the proper boat, I called Chan. I'm like, hey, man. And by the way, Corin, I called Corin too. So this is funny. So I'm already paddling a Savage Scorpion and a Savage Fury. Corin has me in both those boats. And Chan sends me the Dagger, the Wave Sport Frankenstein. And
Yeah.
I'm really good friends with Corin, and Corin's like, I'm gonna make you like poster child. We're gonna do a full page ad. It's gonna be you standing there with a spear over Celine, who she's gonna be naked, and everything's like, and like that's Corin's like, it's gonna be we're gonna crush it with these ads and whatever. And I'm like, okay, and I'm married with kids, and then Chan's doing the same thing, and Christine and I are deciding, like, what do we do? Do I go to Savage or Frankenstein or to Wave Sport? And no offense to Corin, but it was kind of like, I think we got more potential future at Wave Sport. I think that's a better long-term potential for us. So sure enough, we
Well,
went
and
to Wave
can I
Sport.
interject there?
Yeah.
If you would have went to Savage, and then later, let's say Riot, that was always going to be Corin's company. And even though Chan was the owner of Wave Sport was you, for all, and like you really got to become the face of Wave Sport. Even though it wasn't necessarily your company, but you were the face of it.
Yeah, there's no with Corin and I have a lot of similarities in that we both know how to build a team and we both are visionaries and we both want to push. So when it
Thousand
came to
percent.
boat design, for example, it would have been a problem at Savage right away because I'd just get in there and like, okay, and then Corin would be like, no, 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 this is my
Yeah,
okay, because we don't do things the same way, but Corin is very much a visionary and very impressive on that side. But the
thousand
two of us
percent.
together would have been like, it would have been like two opposites of a magnet. It would
Hmm.
have been a problem. It was better that I just was friends with Corin and went with Chan. And when I went with Chan, the first thing was like, okay, he's like, you're gonna. Of course, I was on the cover of the first catalog. I was in full page ads right away. Boom, boom. I took photos with Skip Brown on the Potomac doing cool things in my Frankenstein and whatever. And it's all about, okay, we're gonna. Chan wanted to dominate, and it's like, okay, well, I know all the best people. Like, let's put a team together. And he's like, oh yeah. And my instructors, just my instructors at adventure schools was John Trujillo, Sam Drivo, Eric Southwick.
Yep.
One of my students were Tanya Schumann, Alexa
Hmm.
Schumann. They were literally 18-year-old blondes that took a beginner class. And then there was this 51-year-old dude that couldn't carry his boat up the hill, and he was all depressed. He put his boat down. And the two blonde twins in bikinis run down and give him a hug and kiss, like, you can do it. And he, whoa. And I'm like, you guys get to take classes for free from now on. You can just keep doing what you're doing. You don't have to pay for classes. And then they started dating the instructors, whatever. Then they got married and whatever. But anyway, that's where a lot of team wave sport came from, right there.
That's cool.
And then it came. Then Dan Goodyear came, and I just kept putting the pieces together. Chan brought in Erica Mitchell and Billy Craig.
Yep.
Then we had Jimmy Blakeney and Erica Mitchell. And we put this team together. One by one, Jamie Simon, Jamie Cooper, and we just had this. Our goal, we had one goal. Here's what we do, guys. We go to events, we completely dominate, and we have the most fun, and then we leave, and then we go to the next one. Now, why is that cool? Now, at that time, creek boaters were. Now, by the way, we're doing all kinds of badass creeks and everything too. But creek boaters, that play boaters had all the sponsorship. Why? There's no social media. There's no GoPros. There's no nothing. How do you
Right.
sell boats in where there's people around? So big events, lots of people, interact with the people, show them how good time it is. That's how you sold boats. And it was play boating that did it. It was freestyle that did it. If you're out
Yeah.
creek boating, you're in the middle of nowhere. You're all by yourself and nobody knows. It's like, oh, I ran this awesome waterfall. Oh, cool. No
Yeah.
photos? No. Anyway. Um,
Yeah.
so that team, we literally are. It's like the rule is do not. Sorry, but there should be. They're better. We're going to be in first, second, and third. There better not be a dagger boat or a perception boat or a piranha boat. If one's in front of you, that's on you. That's your but it was done in a very fun way. Like we weren't like we were just out having a great time, but we had a great team and we trained
Hmm.
together and we like had nuances and then we kept designing the best boats. Of course, did the X in '97, came out in
Yeah.
'98, then the Triple X and then the Fort Play and then the Easies or whatever. So we try to keep the boats ahead of the competition. The competition was trying to keep up, and we would design them faster. Like so, but then everybody designed them faster. So everybody designed a new playboat a year.
Right.
And then I carried it anyway. Then Wavesport got bought out. Chan sold it in 2000, 99, and then I was under Andy Zimmerman, but he was so busy that he didn't have time. I'm like, don't worry about it. I got Wavesport, and we took Wavesport from $1.5 million in '99 to $5 million in 2002, and like just grew it really fast. But then he had time to like figure out what was going on. He's like, now I'm going to tell you what to do.
Mm.
And then uh, I wanted to design a boat for Dane, and I did. Dane has it hanging on his room. It was called the Ace 2.1, and Dane's paddling this super ghetto prototype. It's got a yellow cockpit rim welded on an orange boat. I did it myself. It's super ghetto because I just thought it was a one-off. But then they're like, no, we're not going to put it in production. It's like, I got a son that paddles. He's crushing it in this boat. This is a super ghetto boat. There is no other boat out there. So either you make this boat or I have to go make him a boat somewhere else. And if I have to make him a boat somewhere else, well, obviously I'm not going to be here. And that's what happened. That's where Jackson Kayak came from. And then we did the
That's
same thing. Let's put a new
right.
team together. So we just started a team, yeah.
Yeah, and it was so funny in that time from like late '90s. I mean, obviously you go back longer than that, but I think the freestyle tour kind of emerged in the late '90s, right, for what it was, and then through the mid 2000s, kind of that 8 year window there. And each of the companies, like the team members' personalities almost reflected the designs, if you will. Where like the Piranha
And the
Boys were kind
company
of
ownership too,
yeah, like the
and the
Piranha
company
Boys were kind
ownership
of
as
like
well.
these mountain guys from West Virginia, and they didn't really care about the competition too much. They just wanted to creek. Uh, you guys were out there dominating. Dagger was more focused like instruction, but competing and extreme, but
Paddle with
but
the
never
pros.
paddle with the pros. Exactly. A lot of guys like me, NOC or wherever that were like the head instructors at their kayak school were paddling the Dagger boats.
Yeah,
And so it was kind of neat. And
no, it's
Riot,
very
of
good.
course, was like extreme, way out there, kind of like skateboarders or surfer punks, kind of thing. It was cool.
Yeah, no question. No, that was really cool. There's no question that the teams represented and was very much showed the personality of the brand, and it was basically because at the end, I mean, that's the only way to do it is you can't have, a bunch of riot guys at Dagger. That just wouldn't fly. So
Right.
you had to have you had the Dagger guys, you had the Andrew Holcombs and
Yep.
people that were just great down to earth people. Each team had its own personality, and they were all really cool. So what people wonder like why is in 2000 30,000 whitewater kayaks a year were sold. This
Hmm.
year to be like 10,000 in the
Right.
U.S. And the reason is because in 2000 you had, with wave sport, you had Chan and, me, the wave sport team at every
Hmm.
event. And there was a keg of beer at every event. And that was kind of what their thing. And we've got, just watch like Dashboard Burrito and you see what
Right.
wave sport team
Yeah.
is about. And the Dagger guys were there and they're doing instruction and they're doing different things. And everybody was trying to outdo everybody at every event. So every event had a lot of fun stuff to do that was going on. So and not to mention that the companies were all putting in cash into the events.
Right.
We're sponsoring the events. Today, there's no like, Jackson. You go to a freestyle competition and it's 100% Jackson kayak. Now, my
Right.
goal, by the way, that was my goal way back. Literally, my exact words when I started Jackson kayak is How do you know your? I had two goals. Goal number one, I wanted the I wanted to get a knock on the door by the trust saying that you've got with an antitrust guy saying that you have a monopoly on kayaking and we're gonna have to break you up.
Mm.
I want to be that was one goal. I want to be so successful that we have a monopoly, right? That never happened. But the other one was my goal is to have people tap out, meaning like we're gonna design kayaks so fast, we're gonna just keep redesigning and making a better kayak that even if they want to, like, oh, we'll make a new one, we'll just leapfrog it right away. And Troy was like, we just can't do this more. I just give up. Not seem
Hmm.
like a cool when you're literally in the mix and you're the underdog. That's a good goal, right? It's like
Right.
you're an underdog. You got all these huge companies. You're just like literally starting. There's four people that work for you at the time, and it's like that's a cool goal. Well, obviously Jackson Kayak pulled that off in freestyle kayaking. You go to any freestyle competition, and it's 9 out of 10. 19 out of 20, whatever. Whitewater kayaks in the competition are Jackson Kayak. And ultimately, that's not a good thing because, Liquid Logic isn't sponsoring any events. Dagger's not sponsoring any events. Prawn is not sponsoring any events. And then Gigi's from France and they don't sponsor events, whatever. So basically, the only people doing it was Jackson Kayak. But the
Right.
other thing that happened is Chan sold to Annie Zimmerman, which is fine. But Annie Zimmerman was busy selling Pungos, which is a recreational kayak. So the
Right.
energy is like, oh, and all the sales reps, Pungo, Pungo, Pungo. Wave sport, cool, but it's doing fine. So when talking to sales reps, talking to dealers, or whatever, all the emphasis is on this money making boat, not this whitewater boat, even though it could make money. Um, Bill Masters sold. It became Watermark. And then
Hmm.
Joe Pulliam was running it, and he just canceled Perceptions. You don't even have Perception anymore.
Right.
And then, Prana's in the U.S. is a distributor, so it's not actually Graham, who's the owner, who's awesome, doesn't come here. So Prana doesn't have that same kind of strength. Um, Waka doesn't do freestyle. And now Jackson Kayak isn't owned by Eric Jackson. It's owned by another guy anyway. And it's run by, a Swiss German CEO who's awesome, a great at what he does, but he's not a whitewater kayaker, and it's not like the company doesn't have to be successful in whitewater; it just has to be successful. You know what I mean? So
Right.
So the emphasis on the whitewater brands instead of like we're Chan Zwan's like I own whitewater kayaks period.
Right.
Wow, I'm there, and Joe Pulliam, wow, and all these people there trying to push the sport. Now, where are they? They don't exist. So now it's just kind of left to its own thing. So the result of that is that a third, and it's nothing to do with the market or anything else. I mean, I mean, there are other factors that ultimately play in, but at the end of the day, there's a third of the whitewater kayaks sold, and it's because you don't have a bunch of young brands that have a lot of energy and are putting energy into the sport that give paddlers something to do and really ramps up the activity levels. Anyway,
That's that. It's so
I don't
funny
know where
because
that is.
I talked to Corin and I talked to Shane, and I ask about designs and kind of the similar things about the state of the industry, and they all have kind of similar viewpoints, but different as well. It's kind of neat though to think about like the three of you, kind of approximately the same age, and so like if anybody's ever heard like Malcolm Gladwell about like outliers, people who are born in certain times, like if you would have been 10 years older, 10 years younger, you wouldn't have hit that sweet spot right when you did to emerge onto the scene and be able to start your own company and things. So, it's kind of cool that
We were
all
in the
three of
sweet
you.
spot. Yeah, no, there's no question. I was really lucky because I rode the wave on slalom. When I started
Hmm.
training slalom, it wasn't an Olympic sport. And in
Yeah,
'84, I made the team the first time in '89, and the first Olympics it was once in '72. The first
right.
Olympics is '92. So I'm
Yeah,
riding this wave. It's a
yeah,
wave of new events, new sponsors, the whole deal, and the Olympics. I mean, forget the whole deal.
right.
If you're a slalom racer now, that basically USA Canoe Kayak when I was on the Olympic team had a budget of like $2 million a year. USA Canoe
Hmm.
Kayak went out of business. ACA Slalom has a budget of what 100,000 a year. I don't know. Anyway, I rode that way. I was very lucky. That was the right time and went 93 worlds. And then by the time 97, 98, 99, freestyle kayaking,
Yeah,
100% the evolution of the sport in the 90s, evolution from a design standpoint, company involvement, money in the sport, interest in the sport, TV. I mean, Gorge Games. I was
right.
in the Gorge Games. I know you say I'm like my decorated for freestyle, but don't forget the creek racing
Oh, you were,
and those
yeah,
creek race
yeah.
wins.
Oh, for sure. You were impossible to beat at a creek race. I know firsthand. I was at the
Yeah,
Gorge Games too, but I didn't finish as high as you did.
I didn't. Uh, and obviously, Dane is a dominant creek racer.
Dominant.
Sam
Yeah.
Sutton. There's a lot of amazing, you know, um, creek racers out there. I was just at a time when there was a lot of creek races, and
Hmm.
uh, anyway, we had a lot of really cool races back then, as you know, in the '90s, mid '90s,
Yeah.
and late '90s.
Yeah. All right, so this
Cool.
next one, flow advice. What advice would you give to a new paddler? And then also, what advice would you give to someone who's been out of the sport for a long time and coming back to it?
Um, both of them are pretty similar. So, uh, if you want to have a really enjoyable paddling experience, you need to be really confident in your roll and brace. Those are your survival skills. So, new paddlers, most people learn to roll and they learn to roll the wrong way. They learn some C to C or something stupid like that, which is like handicapping yourself right out of the gate. Um, you learn to roll first time every time and first time every time really fast. It's easy to do. I teach anybody how to roll in 15 minutes or less, and I've done it thousands of times and never failed that once. Um, so it's easy to learn, but most people, once they get their first roll, they stop there and they're like, I'm rolling. And they literally set up, tip over, roll up 10 times. I know how to roll. So if you're a new paddler, when you tip over, never set up before you tip over because that will never happen in a river. And that's why
Mm.
you're going to swim over and over because you're upside down, like, what's going on? This doesn't feel right. So for new paddlers, rolling and bracing, so they take that serious. And it's easy to learn, but you do it. Every rapid looks like, oh, this looks awesome. I probably won't tip. I've got a brace. And if I did tip, I can roll. That's good. If you look at the same rapid, I'm probably going to swim or I might swim. It's scary. So people leave the sport due to lack of confidence or getting hurt. Lack of confidence is being upside down, flailing, sucking water, not knowing if you can get up, getting scared, popping your skirt, being embarrassed, having to empty your boat, maybe getting hurt. That's why people get out of the sport. Good roll and brace, number one. And then strokes and concepts. People are like, "What's strokes and concepts?" People don't learn it. It's like, that's how you move your boat
Yeah.
around.
Yeah.
There's a reason that the Dane Jacksons of the world are the best in the world. They learn strokes and concepts first. Their
Yeah.
habits are right. Learning good habits is easy. People spend no time doing that. And you can do that in flat water. You can do it all winter. You can do it in a pool, whatever. So rolling and bracing and strokes and concepts are two things. If you're learning to paddle, you do that, you're going to be better. You're going to have a good career. You're not going to get scared. You're going to have confidence. And for recurring people coming back, it's the same thing. Anybody that comes back, the very beginning is going to be like, "Ooh, I'm nervous." They're scared. It's like, I don't feel as good. I'm stiffer than I used to be. I'm not as flexible. I've gained 20 pounds. I don't know. Blah, blah, blah. It's lack of confidence. It goes straight back to what the beginners need to learn. Get your roll and brace down in a comfortable environment. And when I say get it down, if you've got to watch my videos, it's just because you can do 100 rolls in a row, set up and tip over, it doesn't mean you're good at rolling and bracing. You got to tip over one hand in the paddle all flipped around, stay upside down for 5 seconds, find it, get the angle right, roll up your first time. And then ultimately you got to learn to roll up without setting up. But that's what you do when you're coming back to paddling. And then paddle on easy water first. Don't try to prove how badass you are, what you used to do. And then you should be good to go. Those would be my advice for both. Again, as a beginner, if you're learning and you're thinking of going to kayak school, there's a couple things. Kayak school's record nationally isn't really good, meaning 1 out of 10 people that take a beginner class become a whitewater kayaker. Whitewater kayaking means they bought a boat and they go. That doesn't mean 9 out of 10 people really didn't want to learn to whitewater kayak. It means 9 out of 10 people, the experience wasn't good enough. They got scared or whatever, that wasn't motivating enough for them to take the next step and actually go all the way.
Hmm.
And an example of what happens in kayak schools is for beginners, like almost exclusively, is it's like, "Oh, let's first find out if you can get out of a kayak. So we're going to strap you in this boat with this spray skirt on. You're going to tip over and see if you can get out." Well, that's like the most terrifying friggin' thing in the world for almost everybody. They're like, "Oh, I don't know," like whatever. And then they get out. Now they're wet, and then their boat's full of water. Now you got to empty the boat. They basically, let's start with the worst possible experience in kayaking and make you do that. And that's a withdrawal. So if you're a new paddler or a recurring paddler, your objective is to make positive deposits in your as experiences. So let's say it costs $2,000 to be a kayaker, and you come in with $500 in the bank. Well, every experience needs to be a positive until you get to the 2,000, and now you're good to go. But if your first experience is a wet exit, it's like minus 750. You just have, now you're overdrawn. You're just like, this sucks. I'm wet. I'm cold. This boat's heavy. I'm slipping. I can't empty it. Everybody's looking at me like I'm an idiot, and I feel so stupid. And anyway, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm going to finish this out, say, "Oh, good, thanks. Here's your tip," and I'm out of here. Anyway, that basically defines. So your goal, if you're getting into the sport or you're back into the sport, is to put yourself in situations that allow you to have positive experiences from the beginning, and make sure that that's what you're doing. So don't get over your head right away if you're coming back in, and get the right instruction. Anyway.
Love it. All right. Are you ready to run the rapids?
Yeah, I don't know what that means, but go ahead.
All right. So this is like a rapid fire segment, but I love Mount Rushmores or ranks. So anytime somebody's going to rank something, I'm all in. It could be ranking, the top, you know, sourdough breads. I don't know. Like if you're going to rank them, I'm in for it.
Uh,
So I'm going to give you a topic, and you're going to tell me your Mount Rushmore of these topics.
Okay,
Are you
I think I know
ready?
what you. Yeah.
Kayak designs of all time.
Kayak designs of all time. Uh, okay. I'll start a little more modern.
Okay.
Disco.
All right.
Uh, X.
Yep.
Um, how many you want to do?
Well, there's
Um,
four on Mount Rushmore. I'll give you five. You can go up to 5.
okay. RPM, Dancer, All-Star, now Ringer. And
I
Ringer's
like it.
one, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to put your new boat in there. I like it. Rivers of all time. Your favorite rivers.
Uh, Zambezi, Foodalafoo, Caney Fork here at Rock Island, uh, Ottawa. Um, Got to throw a creek in there, maybe Bear Creek down the road.
Okay. I like it. Um, this was a little controversial for some people. They don't want to. So far, everybody's they've taken a stab at it. Whitewater kayakers of all time.
Whitewater kayakers of all time. Walt Blackadar, Richard Fox, Dane Jackson, uh, Corin Addison, Steve Fisher, uh, I
Three
won't
of
name
those,
myself.
three of those are my Mount Rushmore. You named three of my Mount Rushmore,
Cool.
and I will say my fourth one is the guy I'm talking to for sure.
All right, cool. Well, I'm not naming
And
myself.
I wouldn't either if I was you, but I will do it for you. You're
Oh,
on my Mount Rushmore.
cool. Thanks.
A river that you've never paddled that you would
The
like
King.
to.
It's the King.
Okay. Yeah.
Opportunity's been there, but not really. Always at the wrong time and whatever. So haven't done that one yet.
Yeah. Maybe get on there with your son sometime.
He knows it well. I just follow him.
That's
Don't have
right.
to scout. Just like let's just go. Just stay on my tail. I'm in. Just try not to pass him.
Right. All right. This is final flow. So don't think about this as like a negative thing. This is just kind of like thinking about philosophy. You think about like your children. You changed the diaper for the last time and you didn't know it was the last time. So you now get to know this is your last time ever kayaking. And I want to know what boat are you in, what river are you on, and who's on the water with you.
Mm. I'd probably do Zambezi, Dane, Emily, Nick, Tucker, and Casey. Yeah.
What boat are you in?
Uh, Only one run.
One run. This is your last one.
I've only taken playboats to the Zambezi. Dane's probably going to want to take a half slice. We always did so many playboats. He's like in the half slice. So I'll take the ringer, and then I'll get the world's biggest kick flips because nothing goes bigger than the ringer. It's the fastest boat, 9-foot boat on the water, the lightest, and pretty awesome. And we would go at medium high flow,
Awesome.
probably January,
Well,
February.
well, EJ, thanks for being on B-Flow Sessions. I really appreciate you being here with me.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Brad. Super fun. Just like the old days. Just we both have a little more gray hair. That's all.
Yeah, especially mine's almost white now. So,
My beard
but
looked like that, but I shaved it off this morning.
okay.
Beard looked like the top of your head this morning before I looked in the mirror. I was like, oh, I can make that go away.
All
Sweet.
right. Well, thanks again for being on B-Flow Sessions.
Yeah, we'll see you on the water sometime.
All right. Sounds good.
See ya.
Thanks for listening to this episode of B-Flow Sessions. Please take a moment and rate the show, give it a follow, and leave a comment. Also, if you could share it with your fans, your friends, your family, and everybody else you know in the paddling world, that would help the show grow and help more paddlers find and be in the flow.